If you've ever felt out of place in a male-dominated room, this one's for you. Here's how I turned every no into a yes on my own terms. With the 8 key lessons I'm about to share, I've scaled my own business from zero to over $100,000 a month, and we've helped our coach and consultant clients to generate over 4 million in revenue in total in the past 3 years. So these aren't just any tips, these are actually proven strategies that work. And the first lesson is that it's never about the money. After taking hundreds of sales calls and selling our premium program for more than 400 times, I've learned this first key lesson that price is never the real issue. So when a client says that I can't afford it, it almost always means something else. And what it could mean is actually that they don't see enough value. So the client isn't convinced on the result or the transformation to justify the investment, or they don't trust the solution. So they might not trust you, your business and your company, or your process, or even themselves to deliver the promised outcome. And they might also lack clarity, so they don't even know what the offer is about. So they don't fully understand what the offer includes, how it works, or how it solves actually their unique problem that they currently have. So how to handle the I can't afford it statement or the objection that they might come if they have told you now that they have all these issues and the problems that they've shared with you on the call before you even shared the price with them. There clearly is an issue that they need to get solved. And if they don't see how your offer is solving that, then there is some kind of miscommunication happening and you need to take a step back. And what I would do is to have this sincere concern of their situation. Like you could even say that I want to help you to make the best decision for your situation. Let's talk through what's holding you back. And even coming up with these other types of questions. So instead of defending the price, you could ask what part of this feels uncertain to you, or what would you need to feel confident moving forward? So having these questions actually trying to solve what is the actual issue that they are now having? Is it that they don't trust you or themselves? And this is how you can start to resolve what is the actual objection that they have. Then you can give them the answers also that they need. But what I would definitely do is just instead of defending or over-explaining yourself, I would ask the right questions. But remember, if you constantly have these conversations where the client is coming up and telling that I can't afford it, it's typically one of those 3 things that I just mentioned. So it's about not trusting or seeing the value, or not trusting the solution, or the lack of clarity. So it's typically one of those 3 instead of the price objection. And what I've also noticed is that if somebody wants the thing that you have, your offer, they will find a way to invest in it. So they will find a way to get the money or loan it from someone or whatever. But if somebody wants something, they are actually willing to put in the work. So the next lesson is that you should always be following your sales script. And I don't mean a script which tells you exactly every sentence that you will need to say in a sales meeting or in a sales call, but I mean a specific outline of the conversation that you will have with the potential client in the sales meeting. And you should definitely have one. If you don't, you should definitely look into it and try to get yourself one. And if you have one but you're not using it, you should definitely start using it every single time, 100%. Because this is something that I'm always looking for also with my own sales team, which leading, I'm listening to the calls, and I'm always, the first thing that I look at, are they following the process? Because I'm always telling to our clients and also our team that every time that you are slipping away from the sales scripts that has been proven to work time and time again, and you're coming up with something on your own, that is always minimizing the possibility of you closing that deal, because you are coming up with some things that aren't proven to work. So what I always say to everyone that I work with is that first, are you following a script? Do you have a script? And then we are going to look into the script, because it's also easier to improve your sales process and your closing rate and everything if you have the script, and we can then just look into it, like what is the part that isn't working in the script, and we can improve like one part at a time to see how we could improve your sales conversion. So the next lesson is that when you are presenting your offer, you should always have the feature included with benefit. So what I mean by this is that when you are telling about some feature that your program or your offer, like a service, whatever, has, you should always tie it with the benefit that feature is bringing to the client, because people are not buying your like 10 hours of video or one-on-one call with you or whatever. Like, they are actually buying the result and the outcome, and that is why also having the features always tied up with the benefit is really important when you're presenting your offer. What could I tell is, like, you will have unlimited access to me on your private Slack channel, and you will have this community of other like-minded entrepreneurs, so that you will never feel that your questions are unanswered and you get stuck because of that. So like having the feature of the unlimited Slack access to you included with the benefit that you will actually not get stuck because you get all your questions answered. So this is a way of telling about your service. And now what you could do is to immediately go through your sales script and like where you are like presenting your offer, and just like look at it, like, are you always including the benefits when you are sharing about some features that you have in it. And the next lesson that I've learned over the years is that stop over-explaining and ask questions. So this is already a little bit talking about when handling the sales objection, I can't afford it, but this is the same with every other objections as well. When a client raises an objection, like, you should always be asking them like, okay, well, what do you mean? Have you thought about it before? Or like, where does this come from? And like, you should be trying to understand like, where is this objection actually coming from? Because typically what I've noticed is that we can't even understand like, why is somebody asking something, because they might have a bad experience from a previous coach or consultant, for example, working with them, and they want to get the answers right now because of that. And instead of saying that this is why my approach works, you could be asking like, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now, or what would success look like to you? So you will actually get to know even more like, what are they thinking? And in that way, without you even ever telling that this is the success, how it looks like when you're working with me, they are actually saying that to themselves by themselves. So this is what I always try to get people to do on a sales call. Like, I actually always think this in a way that the client is not saying yes to you or your service or your offer, but they are actually saying yes to themselves, to the change that they are making to their life, to their business. And that is what I always want to make sure, that they are fully confident in their decision about making the change in their life. And now they are choosing to work with me to deliver that change and to solve their problem. And that is like a really different approach to sales than what I've ever heard from anyone else. And I think that this is something that will also make you feel better while doing the sales, because you are there to actually help them. You are not there to trying to pressure them into making a decision to work with you. But then at the end of the day, they just want to work with you, because what you've done is already that you've changed their lives, because you have helped them to realize what they actually need, and you have given them also what they need. And I would like to add that most of the time, all the objections that people come up with on a sales call are like excuses that they are coming up. So what I would do in a sales call is like, I'm not going to be there like, oh yeah, of course, like this is a real problem for you, and this is why you should definitely need to think about this now more. I would actually hold them accountable and tell them like, hey, you said that this is a problem, like, are you now actually willing to commit in doing what it needs to happen in order to change this problem? And like, I would definitely hold people accountable, so you will be able to even a little bit like call out on their excuses when what they are making, because you also know, like when you can stand behind like 100% behind what you're selling, and you know that that is the thing that will change their like situation and solve their problem, then you can actually be a little bit more like tougher on them, because you know that this is what they actually need in order to change their situation. And I almost feel like that I have disappointed not just myself but also the other person if I can't close them on my offer, because I know that they are not able to change their circumstances without it. So like having that kind of confidence in your offer is really crucial, so that you can be a little bit even tougher on the calls and still show that you are empathetic, because you're doing it sincerely, because you just want the best for the client. So you should definitely be like their partner and helping them to make the best decision for themselves. So the next lesson is stay silent after you have told the price. And this is what leads most of the time to this like uncomfortable situation where you are silent and the other person is like, okay, well, they're thinking about it. And I have like literally been there for minutes sometimes, like just waiting that the other person is doing their thinking and thinking it all through if they want to continue the conversation and start to work with us, or they are just like, oh, I'm not doing this right now. So like having the discomfort there to just stay silent is so powerful. Like that is a game changer, because if you start explaining yourself after you've given the price, then the pressure of making the decision right now is taken off from the other person. And this is like good pressure to have on a sales call, because like you want to close them, and closing means that they are saying to you yes or they are saying no. Like it's totally okay if they say no, but having it like in this like weird situation where it leaves like, oh, maybe like I need to think about it, or like whatever, like you should definitely avoid that and try to stay silent in order for them to think it through. And I've seen so many things happening in this phase of the sales call. Like I've seen people even started crying or said like having tears in their eyes, because it's been so important from them. And actually one of our teams, like closer, who has been with us since 2022, said that always, every time when there's like tears, she knows that they are closed, because it's so important for that client that they are getting emotional to making the decision. So they are like happy tears in a way. And also I've seen people started meditate or like doing these breathing exercises, because these have been like one of the biggest decisions that they have done, because what we do, we sell premium service. So it's probably like one of the biggest investments that they've done ever. So like they are thinking it through, are they making the best decision for themselves? And they need that time for doing that. So instead of like releasing yourself from that discomfort and coming there to explain anything, like you should just stay silent and be like here. And actually also another thing that has happened to me a couple of times is like the client is like, hey, are you there still, because we are working over Zoom. So they are also like wondering like, hey, like what's happening? But I'm just there waiting for them to give me an answer. And the answer can be yes or no. And I don't want it to be like, maybe I need to think about it. But after, like typically what they say in that moment can be still like, okay, well, yeah. And then you might need to still like double confirm, like, okay, so are we going to start working together, or like asking another question about it? And then they will start coming up with the objections if you didn't handle them with the right questions already before you gave the price. So that's why it's really important to try to like all the objections that could come out before you give the price, because once you have given the price, then the objections will come either way. And that is when you will use your skills in asking the right questions to keep them accountable and not letting the excuses come up in a way, because people are like, they just want to come up with these excuses why they shouldn't be doing the change, even though that they want it and they really need it. So that is like a really fun part. I feel that it's a fun part of sales, because it's also something that you will improve in time, and it's really rewarding when you get the deal closed and you will see how this will actually change the other person's life. So the next thing is that the sales are, at the end of the day, numbers game. And the more you invest in input, so I mean calls, messages, meetings, the more opportunities you have to close the deal. So you should definitely focus more on the input versus the output, which is like the cash collected or the revenue you're getting, because you can't fully control that. Like, you can't control if a person then says yes and like actually is like paying the price and everything. But what you can control is the inputs, like how many appointments are you taking. And every time I hear somebody saying that, oh, I'm not making enough sales, like I will ask like, okay, well, how many sales meetings did you have in the last 7 days, or how many offers did you give last week? Because if you just took a couple of sales meetings or appointments or calls or whatever, of course you can't expect that to turn into like hundreds of closed deals. So you should definitely always be more focused on the input and like how many follow-ups are you doing, how many conversations you're currently having, because that is always correlated to the output and the outcome that you will get out of it. So what I've definitely learned is that success in sales is about consistency and volume. So increase your input and the output will follow you. So you will definitely get, and this is also something that we just did last year. Like, I was looking at our year in quarters, and I could see it really clearly that when we had less calls in our sales team's calendars, like, we did less revenue. And when we raised that number throughout the year, the last quarter we hit our biggest revenue months and made the most money. So of course, like, it's always like, every time I go back and I look at the data, it shows really clearly that it's about the numbers. Like, it's how many appointments or sales meetings or calls you're taking relates to how many closed deals and how much revenue you are generating. So the next thing is to stop selling cheap stuff. If we think about it this way, that you will take the 10 sales calls and you will get the 20% closing rate, you will get 2 clients. It makes a huge difference if these clients are worth $2,000 or they are worth $20,000. And I've actually noticed also other differences than just the numbers or the revenue, that the higher priced or the high ticket clients, like, they are also typically easier to close. They don't need to think about it so much because they have already invested in themselves, in their businesses, so they are easier to work with. And they are, like, almost all the time, these deals are also faster to do. So I would definitely always be thinking ways to come up with, like, how could I sell something more expensive? And I would definitely leave the cheap stuff and not try to even sell those. So I had this mentor, one of my first mentors ever in business, and he told me, like, when my goal was to hit 6 figures in a year and like 100,000 or 200,000 in a year, and he told me that, hey Marianne, like, you could do $1 million business with this, and the same amount of work that you put in, you could be doing $1 million in a year than now that you're doing like less than 100,000 in a year. And what I was like, this really hit me, and I thought about it for a whole year, that what could be something that I would be able to sell with 5K price point rather than all the cheap mini workshops that I was selling that time. And I spent thinking about it for a year before I came up with it, like, hey, like, this is something that I could be selling with a higher price. And after I did it, I raised the prices. I actually didn't even raise the prices to 5K immediately. My first premium offer was $2,000 and it skyrocketed my business. So before that, I had done like less than 100K in 2 years, So really not a big revenue years. And then the third year, I almost hit $1 million. And it's incredible. It's like mind-blowing, and still to this date. And because I have seen that huge 10x growth in my life, I believe that it's possible to recreate that. And it made me believe that anything is actually possible if you just like really put your mind to it and you believe in it. Because I remember that I was back then thinking that this isn't like that. My goal was to hit 100K months, and that year in January I was like 2,600 euros, like really slow and like low revenue month, and I was still like really focused that okay, well, this year I will hit 100K, and I believed in myself. And even though others like were laughing to me, I just had this like insane belief in myself, like okay, now I'm going to be doing this, and I made it happen in less than 6 months. And it was when I created my first premium offer, which really like it changed my whole life. I would definitely say that. So that's why I will always be advocate on trying to get women especially to sell high ticket things, because like you are going to spend so much time working on that cheap stuff, and you will also do that same with the higher priced stuff, but the results and the outcome is a lot different. So the next lesson is to practice your skills to master sales. And what I have done is before, like I personally participated in sales training every single week for a year. And also what I've done with our sales team, I have invested in like sales coaches and mentors so that they can participate in their trainings every single week, because of course like I can be the one training them, but I really like this is where I believe that the money is made, when you are actually improving your skills. Because if you're thinking like I've seen so many experts and like entrepreneurs who are selling something with their knowledge, like being coaches, consultants, and I've seen how they are investing so much money on developing their skills in the field that they are working on, so that they will get better results for their clients. And that is of course important. But what typically ends up happening is that they don't really invest in sales skills, which is like still the number one skill that you need in order to even get the clients that you could get the results for. So I would definitely say that it's so important to always prioritize your sales skills, because it doesn't matter how skilled you are in your field if you don't get the clients who you could help. So definitely investing in that and getting the sales coach, getting the mentor to coach you in sales, it's super crucial. And that you participate also, like it doesn't matter if you invest in some course and then you don't take it, but actually like being there every single week, trying to get better. And because most of the time it's the basic stuff that you have probably even heard at some point, but you just need the reminder, the constant reminder that hey, follow the script, ask the right questions, like ask in this way and not that way. And then like it will compound and you will get so much better that you will get so much more results, and at the end of the day you will master the sales and you will be able to sell anything to anyone if you just can stand by it. And also what I would say is that it's important in any other areas of your life as well, because if you are an entrepreneur, like you need to be selling your vision, you need to be selling to your investors or getting the right members to your team, to recruit them, to sell the role to them. So like the mastering the art of sales is not just to get you more closed deals, but it's actually even bigger than that. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video and would like to see more tips like this, please press the like button and subscribe.